My husband always said he was traveling to the village to care for family. I believed him. I believed him for 6 years. Until the afternoon I reached into his travel bag to pack his blood pressure medication, because even when I was angry at him for leaving again, I still made sure he was safe. And a folded piece of paper slipped out and floated to the floor. I almost didn't pick it up. I wish I hadn't. It was a drawing, done in crayon, the way only a small child draws. The sun with long yellow lines coming out of it, a house with a triangle roof, stick figures standing together, a man, a woman, 2 small children. And at the bottom, in the unsteady handwriting of a child who had just learned to hold a pencil, these words: "Thank you, Daddy. Please come back soon." I stood in our bedroom, our beautiful bedroom, with the cream curtains I had picked myself, the wedding photo on the wall, the smell of his cologne still hanging in the air, and I felt the floor disappear beneath me. I told myself it meant nothing. I told myself there was an explanation. I told myself I was the kind of woman who trusted her husband. But my hands were shaking. And deep inside me, in that quiet place where women always know the truth before they are ready to say it, something had already broken. My name is Adizi. And until that moment, I believed I had the kind of marriage other women prayed for. Let me tell you about the life I thought I was living. I met Chukwuemeka at a conference in Abuja. I was 28. He was 32. He was the kind of man who walked into a room and made it feel warmer. Not loud, not showy, just steady, confident in a quiet way. He wore a navy blazer and he laughed at something the speaker said, and when he laughed, he threw his head back slightly, like the joy couldn't be contained in his chest. I noticed him before he noticed me. By the end of the conference dinner, we had talked for 3 hours. He asked me questions that no man had ever asked me, about my work, about my mother, about what I believed in. Not to impress me, because he actually wanted to know. I drove home that night thinking, that man is dangerous. Not because he was bad, because I could already feel myself wanting to trust him. We dated for 2 years. Proper, honest dating. Dinner, long phone calls, visits to each other's families. He introduced me to his mother in the village, Mama Emeka, a small, round woman with kind eyes who held my hand and said, "My son has chosen well. I can see it." His father had died when he was young. He was the first son with 2 younger sisters. He spoke about family with a kind of reverence, a deep, serious respect. He said his village, his people, his roots meant everything to him. I admired that. I admired it so much. We married in Lagos. Catholic wedding, followed by the traditional ceremony in the village. 2 full days of celebration. I wore a deep red and gold isiago. His family welcomed me with palm wine and kola nut and songs. I danced into that family like I belonged there, because I believed I did. We built a life in Lagos, a good life. Emeka worked in engineering, project management for a construction firm. I was a pharmacist running my own small clinic attached to a pharmacy in Surulere. We were not extravagantly rich, but we were comfortable. We had a 3-bedroom flat in a good estate. We drove decent cars. We took 1 holiday abroad every 2 years. We did not have children yet, not for lack of trying, and not for lack of love. It was one of the quiet pains of our marriage, something we had agreed to continue trusting God about together. And through all the hospital appointments, the disappointments, the months of hoping, Emeka had held my hand. He had never made me feel like less of a woman. He was patient. He was kind. Or so I believed.
friends call those ghouls. My own sister said, Adaisi, what did you do to deserve that man? I laughed and said, I prayed correctly. I did not know then that I was the punchline of a joke I had not been told. The trips to the village began 3 years into our marriage.
At first, once a year, then twice. Then, by our 6th year, every 3 to 4 months. The reasons were always reasonable. The family land has a boundary dispute. I have to go and sort it out. Uncle Boniface is sick. I need to check on him. There's a community meeting. As the first son, I have to be present. Mama is not feeling well. Always something. Always urgent. Always requiring him to go alone. When I offered to come, he would look at me with something that I now understand was practiced. A careful expression. Half affection. Half firm. Ada, you know you don't like village. The road is rough. The light is not reliable. You have your clinic. What will you do there for 4 days? He made it sound like he was protecting me. I accepted it. Because that is what trust looks like. You accept the story the person you love tells you, not because you are foolish, but because love requires a certain kind of faith. I had faith.
And for years, it looked exactly like blindness. Now that I look back, I can see the cracks that were always there. I did not want to see them, so I didn't. The first time I noticed something was wrong, I explained it away. It was a Thursday evening. I had come home earlier than usual. A delivery issue at the clinic had resolved itself faster than expected. I let myself into the flat and heard him on the phone in the study. The door was slightly open. He was speaking in Igbo. Deep local Igbo. The kind he used with family. Fast and low. I heard the words Nwam, my child, and then laughter. Warm, relaxed laughter. The kind of laughter that only happens when you are completely comfortable with the person you are speaking to. Then I pushed the door open and he saw me. The laughter stopped. The call ended within 20 seconds. He made an excuse I can no longer remember. Something about his cousin's child. I accepted it. I told myself he was talking about a relative's child. Stop being suspicious. But the laughter, the way the warmth left his face the moment he saw me, I remembered it. Months later, I noticed money. I had access to our joint account. We had always been transparent about finances, but I had stopped checking it closely. He handled most of the household expenses. I focused on my clinic finances. Then, one evening, I was trying to calculate how much we had to put toward a land investment my colleague had told me about, and I went into the banking app and scrolled through transactions. The withdrawals made no sense. 30,000 naira here, 50,000 naira there. Regular, quiet amounts, always a few days before or just after his village trips. Not enormous, but consistent. I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time. I asked him about it at dinner. He said it was for his mother, for village upkeep, for community dues, for the land case with the lawyer. Ada, running a family compound is expensive. I don't want to burden you with every small thing. He said it so calmly, so reasonably. And I, educated woman, pharmacist, a woman who could read medical charts and
drug interactions with precision, accepted a story that did not add up because the person telling it was my husband. Then came the emotional distance. It arrived slowly, the way cold arrives in a room when someone has left a window open. You don't notice it immediately. You just begin to feel less warm. He was still present in the house. He still ate my food and watched television beside me and occasionally reached for my hand. But something had shifted. Something was being withheld. When I spoke to him about my day, he listened, but not the way he used to. The way he used to, he would ask follow-up questions. He would remember the name of the difficult patient from last week and ask how she was doing. Now he nodded and said, and looked at his phone. I told myself he was stressed at work. I told myself all marriages go through quiet seasons. I told myself I was overthinking. But at night, when I lay beside him in the dark, there was a space between us that had not always been there. Not physical, something else. A withholding.
A presence that had become partly absent. And I, who had always been a woman of prayer, began to pray differently. Not prayers of gratitude. Quiet, frightened prayers. Lord, let me be wrong about what I feel. But it was the drawing that broke everything open. I stood in our bedroom holding that paper and I could not move. A man, a woman, 2 children. Thank you, Daddy. Please come back soon. I folded it carefully and put it back exactly where it had fallen from. I packed his medication into his bag as I had planned to. I called him in from the sitting room and kissed him goodbye and told him to travel safely. He smiled at me. That familiar, easy smile. I'll be back in 4 days, Ada. Don't overwork yourself at the clinic. I smiled back. And when the door closed, I sat down on the floor of our bedroom and I did not move for a very long time. I am not a dramatic woman. I have never been the kind of woman who shouts or throws things or makes scenes. I was raised by a mother who believed that a woman's greatest strength was her composure. If you must cry, my mother used to say, cry when no one can use your tears against you. So I did not cry on that floor. I thought. I thought about the phone call I had interrupted, the money, the distance, the excuses that had always been just reasonable enough to accept. I thought about 6 years. I thought about the woman I had been, devoted, patient, trusting. And I thought about what it would mean if all of it had been built on a lie. And then I made a decision. I would go to the village. Not to confront. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was confronting. I would go quietly. I would see what was there. And then, whatever I found, I would decide what to do with it. I called my clinic assistant and told her I needed to travel unexpectedly. I called my sister and said I was going to check on a sick friend up country. I hated lying to her, but I wasn't ready to say the words out loud yet.
I booked a bus ticket to Emeka's hometown for the following morning, the day after he had left. I packed one small bag. I did not sleep that night. The road to the village was 6 hours by bus, plus an hour by shared taxi on a road that rattled your bones. I had made the journey before, for our traditional wedding, but that time I was a new bride arriving in celebration, surrounded by family. This time, I sat at the back of the bus with my face turned to the window and dark glasses on my face, and I watched the city give way to highway. The highway give way to smaller roads. The smaller roads give way to red dust and tall trees. I had called a woman, a distant cousin of Emeka's, who had always been kind to me and who I sensed had never quite approved of her cousin's secrets. Her name was Ngozi. I had not told her why I was coming. I only said I wanted to surprise Emeka. There was a pause on the phone before she answered. "Come," she said. "Come and see." Just that. Come and see. Those 2 words lodged in my chest like a stone for the entire 6 hours. Ngozi met me at the junction where the taxi dropped me. She was a sturdy woman, mid-40s, with a face that had seen difficult things and learned to carry them quietly. When she saw me, she held my hands and looked at my face for a moment longer than was comfortable. "You are strong," she said, like a warning. "Ngozi, just tell me where he is." She walked me along a path behind her compound, through a narrow lane shaded by large trees, past 2 other households. She stopped at the edge of a compound I had never seen.
That house, she said. It was a well-maintained bungalow, recently painted, a small garden in front with marigolds, concrete steps leading up to the entrance, a motorcycle parked at the side, children's shoes outside the door, and on the veranda, in a plastic chair, a man sat with a small child on his lap, pointing at something in a picture book. My husband, my Emeka. He was relaxed in a way I had not seen him be relaxed in months. Shoulders loose, head bent toward the child with the same tenderness he had once bent toward me, laughing softly at something the child said. And from inside the house, a woman's voice called
out, clear and domestic. The voice of a woman who knew exactly where she was and what she was doing there. Emeka, your food is ready. He looked up toward the door, and on his face was a look I recognized. Affection, belonging, home. I had seen that look before. He used to give it to me. I do not know how long I stood there. Ngozi held my arm because my body had forgotten what it was supposed to do. The world continued around me. A goat moved across the path, a child called out somewhere, a radio played from a nearby house, and I stood still at the edge of that compound while everything I had believed about my life collapsed quietly inside me. Then Emeka stood up. He handed the child back into the house and turned to follow the woman's voice. And his eyes swept across the compound in that careless way people do when they think they are safe. His eyes found me. The color left his face. He said my name. Just my name. Adaize. In a voice that was not a voice anymore. Just breath shaped into a word. I did not speak. I had prepared myself for this moment for 6 hours on a bus. I had rehearsed words, composed sentences. But standing there, looking at his face, the face I had kissed good morning for 6 years, every prepared word left me. What came out was something I had not planned. How long? He tried to speak, stopped, tried again. Ada, how long, Emeka? His jaw tightened. He looked away. And in that one gesture, that inability to hold my eyes, I had my answer. Long. It had been going on for a very long time. The woman appeared in the doorway. She was perhaps my age, maybe a year or two younger. Plain-faced, but not unkind looking. She wore a house wrapper and held a wooden spoon in one hand. She looked at me with open confusion, and then at Emeka, and then back at me. Emeka, who is this? The question hung in the air between all of us, and I watched my husband, educated, composed, this man who had built an entire architecture of lies. I watched him struggle to find the words to answer a question that had no clean answer. I answered for him. My name is Adaize, I said. My voice was steadier than it had any right to be. I am his wife. We were married 6 years ago in Lagos. Catholic church, then traditional. His mother held my hand and told me I had chosen well. The woman stared at me. The wooden spoon dropped from her fingers. She said something in Igbo. This cannot be. And then she sat down on the step because her legs had stopped walking. And I looked at her face. I looked at it carefully. And I saw something I had not expected to see there. I did not see guilt. I saw the same thing I was feeling. Her name was Chioma. And in the next hour, a terrible, sacred, unspeakable hour in that compound, with Ngozi present and 2 confused children sent to a neighbor, and Emeka standing between 2 women whose lives he had hollowed out from the inside. We learned each other's stories. Chioma had been with Emeka for 8 years. 8 years, longer than my marriage. He had come to the village when she was 24. He had courted her. He had done a quiet, simple, traditional marriage ceremony with her family. Wine carrying, kola nuts,
price paid. Her parents believed she was properly married. He had told her he worked in Lagos. He had told her he would bring her to the city once things were settled. Year after year, he delayed. Always a reason. Always so. She had waited. She had borne his children. She had stayed in the village as his village wife.
A phrase said in this country like it is something normal, something to be expected, something women must simply accept. She had not known about me. She had not known there was a wife in Lagos. She had not known that the settling he kept speaking about would never come because he had already settled with me in a 3-bedroom flat in Lagos with cream curtains and a wedding photo on the wall. She had not known. When she understood, when the full truth of it assembled itself in front of her, she did not scream. She looked at Emeka with a look I cannot fully describe. It was not rage. It was something older and quieter than rage. 8 years, she said. My children have been calling a liar their father. Emeka spoke. He tried. He said things about tradition, about culture, about pressure. He said his mother had asked him to marry a village woman before she died, and he had not had the courage to tell me. He said he had meant to tell us, both of us, but time passed and it became impossible. He said he loved us both in different ways. He said the word love, and I felt something in me go very cold. You do not get to use that word today, I told him. He looked at me. Emeka, I said, love does not live in hiding. Love does not send secret money and quick visits and practiced answers. What you are doing was not love. It was management. You were managing 2 women, and you thought you were skilled enough to keep both lives from breaking. Chioma was looking at me now. What do we do? She asked. And I understood. She was not asking Emeka. She was asking me. One woman who had been deceived, asking another woman who had been deceived. What did do now? I thought about that question for a very long time. I stayed in the village for 3 days. Not with Emeka. I stayed with Ngozi. On the first night, I cried. I will not pretend I did not. I cried in Ngozi's small spare room with a thin mattress and a mosquito net and the sound of the village at night. And I let myself feel the full weight of what had been done to me. I thought about every evening I had kissed him goodbye at the door. Every morning I had made him tea. Every prayer I had prayed for our marriage. Every time I had defended us to myself when my own instincts were whispering something different. I thought about the children. His children. And I felt a complicated grief. Those children had not asked to be born into deceit. Those children called a liar their father, and it was not their fault. On the second day, Chioma came to find me. She knocked on Ngozi's gate and stood outside with a cloth tied around her head. And she said, I made chin-chin. I don't know why, I just needed to do something with my hands. She handed me a small bag of chin-chin. I let her in. We sat in Ngozi's parlor for 4 hours and we talked. Not about Emeka. Not at first. We talked about ourselves. Who we were before him. Who we thought we were becoming with him. What we had given up quietly over years to maintain what we believed was real. Chioma had dropped out of school at his request. He said village life needed her presence. She had not worked in years. She was entirely dependent on the money he sent. I thought about that and felt a new kind of anger. A colder, quieter anger than what I felt for myself. I had a clinic. I had a profession. I had money in my own name. Chioma had been made helpless. On the third day, I sat with Emeka alone. I had asked for this. I wanted to look at him without anyone else in the room and ask the questions that mattered. Did your mother know?
A long pause. She knew about Chioma. Did she know about me? Yes. The woman who had held my hand. My son has chosen well, I can see it. She had known. She had smiled at me and eaten at my table and accepted my gifts, and she had known. Who else? The village elders. My uncles.
Some cousins. Everyone knew except me. He did not deny it. I sat with that for a moment. And Chioma, did she know about me? No, he said. I swear to you, Ada, she did not know. I believed him about that. Then you are lying to everyone. To me, to her parents, to her children. You built your entire adult life on a foundation of permanent deception, and you called it love and culture and tradition. He tried to speak. Do not speak, I said. I am not finished. He waited. I want to ask you one thing, and I want the truth. Not the practiced version, the truth. He nodded. Did you ever, at any point in 6 years, intend to tell me? The silence that followed was its own answer. He had not. He had intended to manage it indefinitely. 2 women, 2 lives, shuttling between them like a man who believes that if he is careful enough, he will never have to choose. I stood up. I am going back to Lagos tomorrow, I said. I am going to speak to a lawyer. And then I am going to speak to my family. Ada, I am not finished. He stopped. I am not only speaking to a lawyer about us. I am also speaking to a lawyer about Chioma. Because what you did to her, what you have left her, is not something I am willing to walk away from quietly. She has 2 children and no income and no degree, and that is a situation you created, and I will not allow it to continue. He stared at me. You are leaving, and you are still thinking about her? I am thinking about justice, I said, which is something you have never done. I went to say goodbye to Chioma before I left. She was in the compound, hanging laundry. One of her children, a girl perhaps 5 years old, ran towards me, small and bright-eyed. She had a maker's nose and Chioma's eyes, and she looked at me with the complete openness of a child who has not yet learned to be careful around strangers. "Hello," she said. "Hello," I said. Chioma came and held her daughter by the shoulders and looked at me. Between us was a strange, sad, improbable kinship. 2 women who had both loved a man who had not deserved it. "What will you do?" she asked me. "I am going home," I said. "And then I am going to decide what my life looks like now. But I want you to know, I spoke to him. He owes you. Not sentiment, concrete things. Education for your children. Money for you to finish school or learn a trade. This is not charity. This is what he owes you. And I will make sure the conversation happens." She looked at me for a long time. "Why?" she asked. I was the other woman. I didn't know, but that is what I was. Why are you helping me? I thought about it. "Because you are also deceived," I said. "And because your children are innocent. And because I will not measure my character by what he did to me. I am not going to become small because he was small." She held my hand then, briefly, tightly. And then I walked to the junction.
and got into the taxi that would take me back to the road, and the road that would take me back to the bus, and the bus that would take me back to a life I now had to rebuild from the beginning. I will not tell you that I healed quickly. I did not. There were months when I woke at 3 a.m. and lay in the silence of that 3-bedroom flat and felt the full weight of 6 years of belief coming apart. There were days when I drove to my clinic and sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I could make myself go in. There were moments when I looked at our wedding photo and felt something so large and wordless that I could not name it. Grief, perhaps, but not only grief. Something that had no clean name. The mourning of a life you thought you were living
that was never actually real. The divorce was not simple. Nothing involving a man who has lived 2 lives is ever simple. There were lawyers and arguments and his family's attempts to mediate. There were people who told me I was being too hard, that I should consider, that marriage is not something you walk away from easily. I walked away. Not because I was not strong enough to stay, but because I was finally strong enough to go. Chioma, with the help of a women's legal aid organization I connected her with, negotiated a formal agreement. School fees secured, monthly upkeep for her children, the house transferred to her name. She has since enrolled in a vocational program. We do not speak often, but once she sent me a message. I finished my first class today. Thank you for reminding me that I could. I kept that message. As for Emeka, I do not wish him harm. I want to be honest about that. I am not a woman who prays curses. But I want nothing that is his. Not his apologies, not his explanations, not the version of the story where he is also somehow a victim of culture and pressure and tradition. He made choices. Every time he boarded that bus, every time he kissed me goodbye, every time he looked me in the eye and let me believe. Those were choices, and they belong to him. What belongs to me is this: my clinic, which is growing, my name, which I have taken back in full, my mother, who held me on the night I finally told her everything, and who said nothing for a long time, just held me, and then said, "You are not broken. You are revealed. Now we see what you are actually made of." My faith, which is quieter than it used to be, but more honest. And this story, I tell it not because I want pity. I do not. I tell it because there is a woman somewhere watching this right now who is explaining away something she does not want to name. Who is accepting a reason that almost makes sense. Who is telling herself she is being too sensitive, too suspicious, too much. I want to say to her, your instincts were given to you for a reason. You are not too much. The truth will not destroy you. You are stronger than the truth. And whatever you find on the other side of it, you will rebuild. We always do. My husband always said he was traveling to the village to care for family. He was. Just not the family I knew about. But the life I am building now, that is mine. All of it. Every room of it. And no one is hiding in it.